Call the meeting to order. This is a governing body special meeting to hear an appeal. It is a quasi judicial hearing on appeal of a site development plan. This is a special meeting of the Village Council, which is a hearing for the appeal to the governing body of a grant of a site development plan, SDP 23-02, which is an appeal of a decision by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the request for a site development plan for new uses of a commercial property located at 3650 Corrales Road. The new uses include retail, restaurant, and office space. The appellants will have an opportunity to present evidence tonight showing why this site plan should not be approved. I'm Jim Fahey, Mayor of the Village, and I'll be functioning as the presiding officer of this hearing. This hearing today is a quasi-judicial hearing, and the decisions will be made by the members of the governing body. And at this time, I'm going to conduct a roll call. Councilor Miera? Here. Councilor Woolman? Here. Councilor Knight? Here. Councilor Alsobrook? Here. Is Councilor Burkett here yet?
Here.
I hear him.
Yep,
I'm on
Councilor Murray.
Councilor Murray is not joining us.
He didn't sign in, okay. Well, he has an excused absence. Now I'm going to ask the appellants to please identify themselves, and will the representative of the applicant opposing the appellants please identify himself. So who is the appellant? Those who are making the appeal? Could you please identify yourself?
My name is Deborah De La Torre. I live at 28 East Meadowlark Lane.
Okay. And Mr. Hobbs? Oh, you all three want to, okay.
Yeah, my name is Rudy Miera. I live at 116 East Meadowlark. I'm John Campbell. I live at 80 East Meadowlark.
Okay. Mr. Hobbs?
Sir.
Could you identify yourself?
Yes, sir. My name is Robert Hubbs. I'm the property owner at 3650 Corrales Road.
Okay, very good. Thank you. The scope of this appeal will be limited to why the council should approve or deny the site development plan. If people go outside of that scope, I will call you on it and I will say that that's irrelevant. That goes for both parties as well as councilors unless it's really related to the appeal. We are recording this meeting tonight so that a complete, clear record can be created of everything being said. Please remember that we cannot create an accurate record with people talking over one another. So I'm going to be strict about people talking over one another. If people start doing that, I will stop them so we can get a clean record on the tape. The council will have an opportunity to ask questions. Council, if you have any questions, please make sure that you say mayor so I can make sure that I see you, recognize you, and let you speak. Again, that is for the record so that we get those questions and answers down. The questions should be focused on clarifying the record or the arguments given and should not include information or evidence being offered by a counselor through asking the question. I'm also going to assume that everyone's demeanor is going to be appropriate and there not be any badgering or argumentation of the witnesses. I will call people on that also. Evidence in this hearing is made up of everything in the record from the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing. New evidence or testimony is not allowed unless it is allowed by the governing body to be introduced for the first time here tonight. So if there's new evidence that you guys would like to hear, we'll actually have to vote on that. The decision is on the record of the hearing below, and if an exception is granted by the governing body for good cause, that new evidence can be granted. The evidence includes testimony and exhibits. If either party has exhibits to present that are not in the packet, please present them to the village clerk, Melanie Romero, for distribution to the governing body or for display on the video screen after it is determined admissible by the governing body. Here is a general outline of how the hearing will run. We'll first have a summary of the case by Planning and Zoning Administrator. Second will be a presentation by the appellants, followed by rebuttal by the applicant. Each party's time will be limited to 15 minutes. The party may request more time if the matter being heard is extremely complicated and upon their request and the governing body agrees. The appellant may present arguments or call witnesses if allowed by the governing body, and any new witnesses will be sworn in by the village clerk. The appellant can rely on the record of exhibits and witnesses from Planning and Zoning Commission where the site plan was heard. If there are exhibits or visual arguments, those again should be given to Melanie to put on the screen. You will need to explain what the exhibit is, and at the conclusion of the appellant's case, the opponents of the appeal will have a chance to present their relevant information. Before making a final decision, counselors or I may have questions of the witnesses limited to clarifying the evidence, the parties' arguments, or the decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission. No independent evidence should be offered by counselors or me, and I remind us if necessary. That's a good one, remind myself. After questions, I will close the hearing and the governing body will deliberate. The village council may make a determination in open session or decide to deliberate in closed session. That's allowed by the Open Meeting Act. All decisions, though, must be made in public. The governing body may grant the appeal and deny the proposed site plan. They may deny the appeal and approve the site plan. Once a decision is made, then there will be a direction to our attorney to prepare a written decision and findings of fact and conclusion of law supporting the governing body's decision based on the facts established in the record. A hearing date will be set for a time at that time for a vote on the form of decision as soon as practical. Okay, you're up. Could you please once again identify yourself before you talk, because it has to go on a tape.
Actually, are we going to have Lori go first?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Lori's first. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes.
I apologize, I can't be there in person, but I was a little bit more than just exposed to COVID, but I'm fine now. Just keeping myself out of the general population a while longer. So good evening, councilors, Mayor Fahey, Administrator Curry. A site development plan application for 3650 Corrales Road was heard and approved with conditions by the Corrales Planning and Zoning Commission on July 19th, 2023. After a fair amount of discussion, all 6 commissioners present that night voted for approval. I did want to start by just stating a couple of items from appeals code. So anyone aggrieved by a decision of the Planning and Zoning Commission may appeal to the governing body per Village Code section 1849 appeals. And within that section of code, it states an appeal must set forth specifically wherein it is claimed there was an error or abuse of discretion or where the decision was not supported by substantial evidence. It is my assertion and belief that the Planning and Zoning Commission ruled appropriately here, and in fact, then used their discretionary powers to also impose 2 conditions on the applicant that are not required by Village Code directly in response to neighborhood concerns. The minutes from the meeting at which this application was heard are included in your packets. Both those opposed and in favor of the project were given an opportunity to speak. And the bulk of that night's meeting was dedicated to discussion of this application. I also wanted to focus a little bit on some of the assertions made as far as access. Ingress, egress to 3650 Corrales Road has been from East Meadowlark since this commercial building was constructed, at least 2 decades to my knowledge. After the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting and ruling, the applicant contacted NMDOT, like he said he would, to ask for possible access off of Corrales Road. He discovered that one of the individuals who signed the appeal called NMDOT first, pretending to be the business owner. The correct owner, Mr. Hobbs, was denied a Corrales Road access in a couple of emails by NMDOT engineer Margaret Haynes. I do have possession of those emails, and this wasn't unexpected. Before the current proposed business uses, this property hosted Darling Tribes daycare for years, and then an adult day hab owned by Mr. Hobbs. Unfortunately, that got approved, and just a few months later, the COVID pandemic caused it to have to close. Both of those prior businesses that I'm aware of, and I say that I'm aware of, I don't know what it was before it was Darling Tribes, but both businesses use the same Meadowlark access that still exists today. As far as the restaurant, the proposed Bell's Deli could seat up to 50 people, which includes a seasonal patio. When determining required parking, the architect referred to our Village Code, 1 parking space per every 4 chairs. And he also looked at retail, office, and service use, which calls for 1 parking space per every 300 square feet of heated floor area. This is a large lot, and the applicant does have room to expand his parking. As far as alcohol service, anytime the Planning and Zoning Commission approves an application that mentions potential use of alcohol, the commission is not approving such service, only acknowledging that it is permissive use in our code. After approval of a site development plan, the entity proposing to serve alcohol then goes to the state, New Mexico Regulation and Licensing Department, followed by the request for alcohol service going before this body, the council, for actual approval. Other permissive uses within section 1837 include the retail service offices, the accountant and hairdresser being proposed here, and the yoga studio in the building. There was a mention made in the appeal about what the easterly wall is made of and whether it is constructed of block, as the architect believed, or some other material. It still meets the village code buffering requirement in section 1840, which states that when a non-residential property abuts a residential one, it requires a fence, wall, or hedge, a minimum of 6 feet in height, which this is. This requirement is only required for the sides or rear of a commercial property. However, after hearing neighborhood testimony, the Planning and Zoning Commission added 2 conditions in their motion to approve. One of them was that a buffer also be placed at the front of the property facing Meadowlark, and they were very specific in their language that the buffer was being required to mitigate possible sweep of headlights, sound abatement. A second condition was that a right turn only sign be placed at that parking lot exit to direct all but local traffic towards Corrales Road rather than back into the neighborhood. At no point did the commission deny a change of use was under review. In fact, the opposite is true, and you can see that in the minutes. The change of use by adding the deli was the very reason I requested the owner have an architect prepare a site development plan for the entire site that was informally heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission in a public meeting. The Planning and Zoning Commission's decision to approve the deli and other uses of this site development plan 2302 is appropriate and is supported by village code. The commission then chose to impose 2 additional conditions in response to neighborhood concerns. Section 1837 notes the various uses that are permissible in a commercial area. Restaurants are one. Owners of commercial property within the village have the right to use their properties in a way that is reasonable and compliant with village code. And I know we have not much time. I wanted to say one other thing. I get that it's now, unfortunately, a little fashionable to bash public servants, but these commissioners work for no pay. They are all professionals. I'm proud to work with them, and I found them to be nothing but intelligent, fair, and ethical in their dealings. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Now, was Lori sworn in to testify?
People who were in the previous planning and zoning meeting do not need to be sworn in. And now, yep, the appellant. Yeah, that's you. I'm sorry.
Hi, again, my name is Deborah De La Torre. I live at 28 East Meadowlark, and I'm going to read my notes. Thank you for convening this pivotal meeting that deeply concerns us, the residents of Corrales. Mr. Hubb's proposed restaurant with a Corrales Road address, but the only access is from our residential East Meadowlark Lane, is a public safety issue and will significantly increase traffic at the Corrales Road Meadowlark intersection, which is already dangerously congested. The P&Z Commission did not plan for the volume of traffic the restaurant will generate, nor adequately consider the substantial change of use from the previous businesses. The historical usage of this site was the daycare center Darling Tribe, serving around 60 children, and briefly where adults with special needs daycare operated, mainly using passenger vans. Compared to the proposed restaurant's daily influx, the daycare saw at most 120 car visits and none during the weekends. The proposed restaurant, although seemingly similar in capacity, will amplify the traffic almost threefold. An estimated 300 vehicles daily would be expected at a 50-seat restaurant. Assuming the restaurant operates, as currently proposed, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., this does not include the potential for extended hours and weekends in the future. Not to mention the significant impact of semi-trucks delivering food, beer, and beverages on a residential lane and navigating a dangerous intersection. Once this restaurant is approved, there is no going back. Under Mr. Hobbs or any future proprietor, expanded hours and seating will create even bigger traffic problems and safety issues. Additionally, Mr. Hobbs' development plan includes the current tenants at the site, the yoga studio, gallery, accountant office, beauty salon, and yet to be leased spaces, and contributing to the ever-expanding traffic issues. Public safety, without a doubt, should be our collective topmost priority. The safety of drivers, pedestrians, and equestrians at the Corrales Road and Meadowlark intersection cannot be compromised. I implore you to reassess the restaurant's approval. Let us not prioritize individual aspirations over the collective welfare of our community. I have to say that I am appalled and disappointed in the unfairness in Lori Stout's summary. Unfortunately, there is not enough time today to question the accusations and misrepresentations. At a minimum, we request the reversal of the P&Z approval until a comprehensive traffic impact analysis is undertaken. This will ensure that any future developments are in line with Corrales' best interest, safeguarding our community's safety and security. Thank you for your consideration.
John Campbell, 80 East Meadowlark. We're kind of catty-corner a little bit southeast of the subject property. Good evening, Mayor and Village Councilors. Thank you for hearing our appeal to the approval of the site development plan. My wife and I, Kathleen, have lived at 80 East Meadowlark almost 40 years now, and we came here, as most of you did, probably because it's a nice, peaceful, and rural, has a lot of rural character to it. We've enjoyed that. Of course, when we moved here, the population was about half of what it is now, so things have changed as they will. The approval of a restaurant with liquor license at 3650 that will have ingress and egress from East Meadowlark Lane will result in a lot of increased traffic, congestion, noise, glare, odors that are incompatible with the residential location that it's adjoining and abutting and adjacent to it, and in conflict with the village zoning code, one of the purposes of which is to maintain the rural character of the village. To add more traffic at the busiest intersection in the village, from restaurant patrons, clients, employees, refuse and supply, delivery trucks that are entering and exiting the property, and possibly parking in front of ours and neighborhood properties is a major concern to all of us. As traffic backs up on Meadowlark Lane to Corrales Road, it's going to get crazy. And as a result of that, we're going to have a lot of impatient drivers turning around, making U-turns, and exiting down our lane along Andrews, Corval, Priestley. That could be a circus. Let's see here. And it will create chaos. At the P&Z meeting, we objected to the use of the property as a restaurant for the above concerns, preceding concerns. We presented arguments that such use is a significant change of use from commercial endeavors that will significantly change the quality of life of residents on East Meadowlark Lane and exacerbate the already existing safety and traffic congestion issues at the interface of Meadowlark and Corrales Road. We requested, one, a traffic study, and two, that the owner pursue obtaining access from Corrales Road rather than Meadowlark Lane, which Mr. Hobbs has done apparently. And we had communications with DOT as well, and we were told that, you know, it probably would not happen. They probably would not approve. Any application would be denied. However, one of the engineers we spoke with did indicate that he was incredulous over the fact that that P&Z would actually approve a restaurant on East Meadowlark Lane. We kind of are too. Approving a plan for a 50-seat restaurant and other businesses that have employees and clients is counterintuitive to the determination that traffic issue could be diverted by allowing access on the residential lane, basically. Two, P&Z commissioners stated that traffic volume was consistent with previous uses. We've been there 40 years, it was not. Despite any presented data to that effect, and despite residents attesting to the fact that prior uses created little significant traffic and other disturbances at the location, such as will occur with this restaurant. However, Commissioner Harper, Commissioner Harper was asking really good questions and drew up some, considering many of our concerns. And he stated, quote, that intersection is a tremendous problem, unquote, and was the source of his concern regarding ingress and egress being on the lane rather than Corrales Road. He stated that he would feel a lot better looking at some correspondence from the decision maker at MDTOT, which again, Mr. Hobbs apparently has secured, to tell us whether access to Corrales Road is possible or not. He did state to Mr. Hobbs that the reason you are presenting this site development plan is because it is a big change of use, and it is. It may be, the zoning may, be similar to other office complexes and little retail stores and everything, but a restaurant on that corner is a big change of use. And so we have to consider those things as part of it. He also stated he would prefer the applicant come back at a later date after corresponding with him in MDOT. Okay. Despite our objections and after minimal deliberation and with what we perceived as bias by one commissioner, the P&Z unanimously approved the plan with only two minor conditions. And that one was the wall, another one was a couple of directional arrows encouraging people to make a right-hand turn as they came out of as they're exiting the parking lot, right-hand turn onto, as they approach Corrales Road. And I know what's going to happen there. If you envision, say, a dozen cars or 15 cars, 20 cars that are wind up being backed up there, plus your residents from Andrews, your residents from East Meadowlark Lane, it's going to be a zoo trying to get out of there. People are going to be turning around and diverting to other streets. If this plan is allowed, it will not only affect those of us in close proximity to the restaurant, but to all Coroleños and visitors to the village. The safety of our residents and visitors to our treasure village should be a paramount concern of our appointed and elected officials. I emphasize we are pro-business, we're not anti-business. I mean, we realize the village needs gross receipts tax to provide services for its villagers, but we want those businesses in more appropriate places, and not that are going to impact the neighborhoods or the rural character of the village, et cetera. It's imperative that the location, it should be in harmony with the purpose of the village zoning code, which is, quote, to promote the health, safety, and general welfare of the residents of the village by controlling the use of land so that it is developed in harmony with existing uses. We've got a horse property across the street. We've got residents all around there. Of course, the frontier market across. Quote, promoting the most appropriate use of land throughout the village, minimizing congestion on the streets and public ways. That's one of the busiest little interfaces in town, probably the busiest. Securing safety from fire, panic, and other dangers, and maintaining the rural character of the village. That purpose is further expanded on in the comprehensive use plan adopted by the council back in August of 2009. Approval of this site development plan by P&Z, and if confirmed by the governing body, breaches that purpose. Will the benefit derived from the additional gross receipts tax that will be generated from this business be worth the traffic congestion, potential liability, general chaos, and increased threat to the safety and quality of life of all of the residents of the village? We think not. Thank you.
You have 4 minutes and 17 seconds left.
San Isidro is the patron saint of, as we know, the patron saint of the village of Corrales. For hundreds of years, people have told and retold the legend, the story of him being so devout that when he was out busy praying in the fields, the story goes, an angel would take over his work, guiding the ox and plow, as he told the Creator, Lord, it is a challenge when those March winds come, but I can handle it. In fact, I can deal with the plague of chapulines, the grasshoppers, or with the drought, or with any diversity. But please, Lord, Don't send me an unfriendly vecino. We all cherish the quality of life that we enjoy, and that is why in the village code, as John mentioned, we need to maintain the rural character of the village. As we stand at this critical crossroads in time where the actions we take will determine whether or not we protect that rural character, the character of the governance body is on the line. Yes, we are here today to ask you to right a wrong, to correct an injustice. We've all read or heard people talking about the wink that took place at the conclusion of the July 19th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. You know, Webster's dictionary defines collusion as a secret agreement or cooperation for an illegal or dishonest purpose. Thinking about restaurants, I think about what my uncle used to say: you can have dozens of good meals in a restaurant, but all it takes is one bad meal to ruin a reputation. We expect you to champion the village values of fairness, justice, transparency, and honesty. In the end, the village of Corrales is still small enough that we can all be considered neighbors at one level or another. We are here to ask you to do the neighborly thing. What would San Isidro do? Obviously, we cannot control the March winds, the drought, or the infestation of grasshoppers, but we do have control over a growing traffic situation that is not an opinion, but a fact. We must not exacerbate a dangerous traffic density problem by adding to it by approving a restaurant, especially one that is promising alcohol service. Before you vote to consider our appeal, we ask you, queridos vecinos, our dear neighbors, put yourselves in the shoes or boots and vote as if a restaurant were going up across the street from your house or right next door to your home. Muchísimas gracias por su consideración. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Thank you. Okay. Mr. Hobbs, I believe it's your turn.
Well, I didn't prepare any remarks for tonight because I thought that the meeting before the planning and zoning meeting had gone fairly, of course. I prevailed, I guess. But it seems to me that a lot of this discussion tonight is speculation. I hear unbelievably increased traffic and chaos, and again, the alcohol thing was mentioned, but you all have control over that at a later date. That's not even on the table now. But one of the neighbors, let me start way back at the beginning. I wrote a letter to everybody in the neighborhood, introducing myself and talking about what I wanted to do. And I left my phone number and my email address, and I am a constant presence on this property, which is directly across the street from the gas station and the village mercantile and the frontier north. I'm very familiar with the character of the neighborhood, and it is a business corridor neighborhood, make no mistake. When Lori Stout came down to approve my plan for the fence that was a provision of the approval last time, we practically had to shout over each other several times because of the din of the traffic. So it's not a serene and tranquil neighborhood, and I don't want to seem glib by saying that. It's just the fact of the matter. But I wrote the letter asking for anybody with any concerns, questions, comments, anything. Left my phone number, my email address, and everybody knows where I live, right down the street. Nobody contacted me. Then I got news that there was going to be some, a bit of a confrontation at the planning and zoning by Lori Stout. She said, there's some concerns. I said, okay. I wrote them all a letter again saying, please come to me with anything, that we can do. Nobody came to me. One neighbor, Cliff Bessam from down the road, came into my place and asked me what was going on. I showed him the inside of the deli, which is probably half the size of this floor, and it had 4 tables in it. And I said, he looked at me and he said, this is it. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, this is great. I said, well, there's also a patio here that can probably seat as many people. We went to the traffic study folks, Margaret Haynes, I believe her name was. When I first called, she said, we've already talked to the owner of the building, and we've already told him there will be no access granted off of this highway. And she gave me a myriad of reasons why this will not happen. She also said the intersection could be eligible for a deceleration lane, a right turn only lane coming north on Corrales Road, but there's no room for that either. It's just a situation that is what it is. I think that the amount of traffic that I've been hearing tonight speculated that will be generated by this small deli is greatly exaggerated. I think that the wink that I evidently missed entirely by one of the council people has been greatly exaggerated and then doubled down on with a scathing, libelous article to the local newspaper. I really regret all this real animosity by the neighbors simply because I want to fill my building and do business on a building that I bought and was shut down by COVID. I'm doing my darndest to make this work. I've tried and tried and tried, and I've met every requirement of the planning and zoning meeting, but that's not good enough. Now I'm neck deep in corruption with your entire planning and zoning board. By the way, it's an indictment of all of them because it was a unanimous decision. And I just don't understand it. And I can't keep my mouth shut anymore about it. I'm very disappointed. And I'm going to let Lori Stout's comments and the record speak for itself as far as everything else goes. I've complied with everything that I can. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselors, anybody have a question of any of the people who've made presentations? John?
Thank you, Mayor, and this is for the appellant or the original applicant. Is there, in the record, is there the communications from anyone at NMDOT regarding access directly onto Corrales Road? Is that in the record? No, I understand that, but is that in the record for the planning and zoning meeting? Because I didn't see anything in my packet.
Lori? Do we have the letter from Margaret?
No, you don't, because during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, that is when this building has access via East Meadowlark and always has. But during the Planning and Zoning Commission, one of the concerns was during the meeting, can this property get access to Corrales Road? So after the meeting, I sent the NMDOT contact person information to Mr. Hobbs, who then did contact them. I do have a very, very short email from Margaret Haynes to Mr. Hobbs that I could read into the record if it was allowed.
Sure, go ahead.
So that's new evidence, Mayor. We'll need to vote on that.
Oh, that's right. You have a motion to vote on that?
Mayor, I move we approve to accept the oral reading of the communication from Ms. Haynes at NMDOT into our record.
Do I have a second? Second from Mel? Okay, how do you vote?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Mel?
Aye.
Aye.
Yes, sir. Rick? Before I can even get to you. Okay, go ahead and read it.
Thank you, counselors. On Tuesday, July 25th, 2023 at 9:18 a.m., Margaret Haynes with NMDOT wrote to Mr. Hobbs. Good morning, Mr. Hobbs. Thanks for reaching out to discuss your access. As I stated on the phone, your property already has reasonable and adjacent access to East Meadowlark, and no additional access will be given.
Okay. Is that satisfactory? Okay,
That's it? Okay.
that's it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir. Councilor Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you help me with the dates on that one, Roy? That's July 25th. When did you have this meeting? The meeting that we're discussing here?
I have it in front of me somewhere.
Looks like-
Counselor, the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting was July 19th,
Yeah.
2023. That's where it came up that he should at least try for Corrales Road access, which he did. And then the email I read was about 7 days later, July 25th, 2023, where she's responding to him.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I'm picking up that, right, you got this email on the 25th, but you voted on the 19th. And so you didn't have this information when you voted on the 19th.
Well, there was no need to ask for access on the 19th. The building already has access. It just came up during the meeting from the neighborhood that they would like him to ask for Corrales Road access. So he did. And had he gotten it, he would have come back with an amended site development plan with showing that access, but he's not going to get Corrales Road access.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure I'm hearing it right. So you didn't have it. They didn't take that into consideration because they didn't have that information at the time of the meeting, but this came out afterwards. And you're still staying with the vote with this information that was denied by DOT at this point in time. If I'm reading it right, Mr. Mayor, tell me if I'm wrong.
So planning and zoning made a decision on the night of July 19th, and they did not think that they needed to have that record from the highway department. But because of issues raised during, and Lori, correct me if I say this wrong, because of issues raised during the evaluation by Planning and Zoning Commission, Lori suggested to Mr. Hobbs that he contact these people, which he did, and they sent back an email to Lori and said, no deal.
Correct.
That's what I wanted to make sure that my dates were correct, so I don't know, well, it'd be speculative at this point in time, Lori, whether or not, if you had that information on the 19th, if you would have voted the similar way, so I know you said you thought it was, but it was pretty clear on the 25th, the DOT has said no.
I think the way they voted, they considered that information irrelevant, but I can't speak for them.
I understand that, thank you, that, Mr.
But I
Mayor,
would-
you're reading my mind.
That's what I would think.
You were reading my mind on that one.
Mr. Burkett.
Oh, no, I'm still,
Are you
I'm
still-
still
okay,
talking, yeah.
sorry.
Can I ask related to this? So Councilor Miera, can I make a comment related to this line of questioning?
Yeah, because that's kind of where I was going, that they felt was, go ahead,
So
I'll turn it over to him.
My understanding is that this was not a suggestion from administrator staff, that this was actually a condition written into their approval at that meeting, is that they reach out to DOT and ask for access. There were two conditions. There was that, and there was also the condition of the fence. So this was considered and listed as a condition for the approval that they did give that night.
Thank you, that was half of where I was going, and I appreciate
Okay.
that one. If that's
Thank
the
you.
way I'm reading it, that's the way I heard it as well.
Thank you.
That they needed to get back to them, but they never had a meeting after that, when they had that. But if the case were to be, as you stated, Mr. Mayor, whether or not they considered it relevant or irrelevant, it's here today and tonight. We make those considerations, whether or not it's relevant or irrelevant at this point in time. Would you agree with that, Mr. Mayor?
May I make a point of clarification? If you look in your packet on page 21, under the motion that was approved by P&Z was approve SDP 23-02 with the conditions of right turn only signs to the exit, at the exits to direct traffic towards Corrales Road, and that the appropriate buffer be placed starting on the southeast property corner at Meadowlark heading west, taking into account ingress and egress site triangles to properly mitigate the sweep of headlights. So the access on Corrales Road was not part of the conditions.
It was not an official condition.
But I want to go back to your statement, Mr. Mayor. They didn't consider it relevant, but it's in our ballgame tonight, so we could make those decisions whether that's relevant or irrelevant.
Well, actually, okay, yes. you
Okay,
can.
and then, thank you for that last comment, and I have one more question, since we're already to that point. If we have a right turn only, I'm trying to conceive that in my mind, we have a right turn only, even if they did allow it, whether it was coming out of on Corrales Road or whether it's coming on Meadowlark Lane, they have a right turn only, and I'm going back to Albuquerque, I'm gonna have to make a U-turn somewhere, unless I'm reading this all wrong. Somebody's gonna have to make a turn to go back somewhere along the way.
It was a right turn out of the parking lot.
It's a right turn out of the parking lot.
Right turn out of the parking lot, but if I wanna go left,
Then you stop at the stop sign and take a left.
and then you have to make a left at the stop sign,
Well, you
make a
take a
U-turn.
right. If you're going to go left.
The exit is from Meadowlark.
Right.
The thing is, the right turn was going to be a sign on the exit from the parking lot at the Darling Tribes building, Mr. Hobbs's building, excuse me. It's not unusual. We had a right turn only sign coming out of Village Mercantile for a long time. And I'm not quite sure why it's gone, but that was an original.
Because I think they're making us come around the turn and then we come exit out
But
the other way.
regardless
That's
of
okay.
that, that's an example of where it was done in the
And
past.
that's fine. But I just want to make sure that, we're talking, having people make right-hand turns. There were cars that didn't have a problem. We have trucks that are delivering, making right-hand turns, and then they got to come back to Albuquerque. They're gonna have to make that left-hand turn somewhere along the way.
Okay.
And I don't know about that one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Woolman.
Yes, I'm curious about getting some clarification from Mr. Haas, if I could, in terms of the number of seats. You indicated there were 4 tables, 4-person tables?
Yes, sir.
Which would leave, 34 seats on your patio?
Yeah, that's
Approximately.
busting at the seams. You know, it's all based on, all of that was based on the site development plan by the architect of the college.
Mr. Hobbs, would you go up to the microphone so people can Zoom here? Thank you.
Yeah, we're on tape. Yeah, we're on tape. It has to be recorded.
No, yeah, inside there are, it's been sitting ready since, August the 1st. There are 4 tables in there with 4 seats inside. There is a patio out there. They still want to put up a little water station and a little shelf. To say that there could be 36 more seats out there, I think is pushing it pretty hard. You can come and take a look at it anytime. But the reason that those numbers are on there is because there's a, per square foot requirement that Joe Brawley, my architect, put on there. So it's numbers that I think are going to be very difficult to meet, but, and it's also seasonal, so.
I was just going to ask, so is it covered and will it be heated? I mean, is this a year-round patio?
No, it's covered, but it's not heated. It's just kind of almost like a carport, really. It's attached to the building. And it's open. I did build a fence around it because there were privacy concerns. I built a fence around the patio so that, we could mitigate any kind of noise or, any visual traffic.
That's in addition to the wall that was required by planning and zoning?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
I've dug a lot of post holes lately.
Councilor Knight?
Yeah, I hear the people that came up and are against the new cafe, but in the packet, they did have some people write that they were for this cafe. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows there is a pro and a con here.
Thank you for that.
Also, it worries me that people are not representing themselves when they're calling and getting information. And I don't know who did the wink. The first time I read about it, I was appalled. I mean, it gives, whether there was a wink or not, it gives the planning and zoning a bad name. It gives the village a bad name, and everybody really works hard to do the right thing here. So I just needed to say that because, again, people on planning and zoning are volunteers, and they work really hard. And I appreciate, both sides. I've lived here for 40 years too, and I've seen Corrales grow, but that is in the commercial district. He is trying to get along with the neighbors as far as putting up a fence for noise and making the right turns. That does make sense to me, coming out of, that's what happened at Hannah and Nate's. You make a right turn through their parking lot to get out after the stop sign. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Hobbs. Anything else, John?
Thank you, Mayor. One question and then some comments. My question, again, this is for either the original applicant or the appellants. Did you at any time introduce into the record or have performed any kind of traffic study or traffic analysis by a properly licensed professional?
Well, I can testify to that insofar as I did contact almost immediately. She did take a while to get back to me with the emails, and she apologized. But she sent me what's called an STI form. She was very familiar with the corridor. She let me know that. Her and I and Lori Stout had a Zoom meeting to try to get to the bottom of what we need to do. In no uncertain terms, I can enter emails that she has sent me into the record. I thought that Lori had those, so I forwarded them to her. And I think she was actually part of them where Corrales Road access is, quote, off the table, end quote. I filled out an STI form with the address and all that good legal information on the property location, talked about the number of parking spaces, and I had to make some sort of estimation on the number of trips on the AM and PM, so I took a wild guess not knowing. That's why I say everything is so speculative at this point. There will be no trucks coming in and out of my lot, by the way.
Excuse me for interrupting. So this was you're referring to the NMDOT staff? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But not an independent licensed engineer?
No, that was never required of me now.
Okay,
No,
understood.
they pretty much shut everything
Okay,
down.
so your answer is no, thank you.
Yeah.
And the appellants, did at any time you engage a licensed engineer for a traffic study?
Name is Rui J. Miera. I would like to refer to some data.
No, it's just a simple yes or just a simple yes/no question.
Okay. Yes,
Did you,
there was some data that was collected by the village from August 9th from August 19th to August 29th.
and I understand this is your assessment of that data, but at no point did you or another appellant engage any traffic engineers to
No,
aid or analyze or give a report? Okay, thank you.
I requested that.
Okay.
I requested that study, that analysis to be completed before any decision is made for any expansion, especially.
Yeah, and that was it.
But it has not been. It has not been.
That's in the P and Z minutes that we see in our record. Okay, so thank you. So that was my question. Now just a couple comments, Mayor, if I may.
Okay.
Thank you. Just a few things. One regarding traffic. Whatever reasons the NMDOT has for denying driveway access onto Corrales Road, it's hard to discern from that short email. Fact of the matter is, we've got other parts in our village where the administration is requiring us to have a licensed traffic study because we want to propose to drop the speed limit from 25 to 15 on a less traveled intersection. So if that's a requirement, I don't see how it cannot be a requirement to have a traffic study for this intersection. Particularly given, if it's a successful business, we're going to see deliveries, we're going to see more frequent trash pickups. There's going to be natural evolution of a restaurant is to do online ordering, have people come and pick up and leave, particularly in the less comfortable outdoor seasons. And even with that, for outdoor seating, it may not be heated now, but as we can see with Casa Vieja and many other venues, there are easy to acquire $150 propane units that provide heating for multiple tables. So I do appreciate the appellant's concerns about an increased traffic, and I don't believe that planning and zoning met their obligation under 1837 2A. I may have that wrong. They can allow access that's not they can allow primary access not off Corrales Road, provided the applicant can demonstrate there'll be no adverse effects and that the alternate access will not be contrary to public safety. And there's no data in the record to support that conclusion whatsoever. So I think that pretty well addresses the comments I had. So thank you.
Councilor Burkett?
Yep. So actually, one of my questions was related to something Councilor Alsobrooks just brought up. I was curious if there were any specific points in Village Code or points in the approval process that were being contested. I know this is being contested based off traffic, safety, quality of life, and fairness of democratic process. Some of those I think are outside the bounds of a site study. Safety and traffic, I think, are the important ones here. My thought is, based off of the fact that this had a site plan and had a business previously to that side road, that probably is less important to have the traffic study, but could be wrong. But I guess as a question, were there specific points in the application process that you guys think that were neglected versus general things such as quality of life and fairness in the democratic process?
Mr. Muir, did you?
Please.
Yeah.
From Chapter 18 of the Corrales ordinances concerning zoning, Section A, Article 1, it clearly states that in the neighborhood commercial zone, all proposed development shall be integrated with existing adjoining land uses and shall be compatible, I'll say that again, compatible with the existing character of the surrounding area. For several years prior to the proposal for 3650 Corrales Road, Deborah De La Torre and her husband Luis have preserved land for the exclusive use of horses as a type of equestrian haven. She has even brought in young people, some associated with Special Olympics, to assist in the training of good equestrian behaviors and values. Allowing a restaurant to come in across the street with unregulated traffic is a threat to this haven that has been around for the past 7 years. The quality of life for riders and horses is not compatible with a total of 625 speeding drivers in a 10-day period from the data that the village has provided us. Do the math, that's over 62 speeders a day. Recent data from the Corrales Police Department ending August 29th, 2023 shows that in the previous 10 days that 314 vehicles were in violation of the speed limit, representing 18.84% travelers heading east on Meadowlark. And during the same period, it gets worse. Heading west, it was 311 vehicles speeding. Granted, that's less than 314, but I'm talking about the percentage, representing 26.46% or over 1/4 of the vehicles passing through. I don't know what other neighborhoods would put up with, but on East Meadowlark, 18.84% of speeders on our street heading east is not acceptable, and 26.46% heading west is also way beyond acceptable. If almost 1 in every 5th vehicle, I mean 1 in every 4th vehicle is going faster than the speed limit, with several going even 27.68 miles per hour over the speed limit. There were 3 vehicles going east and 1 heading west that were double the speed limit. That is an assault on our safety and security. This is not an opinion. This, in fact, is verified by data gathered by Applied Concepts Incorporated.
Right. I just don't know how this data is any way reflected by a deli and its customers. To me, to be honest, it seems like if there was a line of traffic waiting to turn left, it may actually improve your guys' speeding situation, because people won't want to take East Meadowlark anymore because there's going to be a line to turn onto Corrales Road. So if that's the leg that we want to base this argument off of, I don't know that that's the right leg to choose. Every restaurant in this village is on, every restaurant with 2 that I can think of off the top of my head is on a residential street. It's because every street in this village is a residential street. So it's really difficult to find somewhere that fits the nature of the neighborhood. To me, a small 4-table deli is about as close to fitting the nature of a residential neighborhood as a restaurant possibly could.
Mr. Hobbs, did you want to speak?
I do, yeah, I want to address this. Would you like to speak first?
No, but just a question.
Okay.
So Mayor,
May I ask a question? May I ask a question? Just on numbers. It's just numbers.
Okay.
Honorable Mayor, here's my concern. I keep hearing a variety of numbers. I'm hearing a 50 client capacity. I'm hearing a 40. Can we get real clear on the number of tables? Can we do that?
Well, I talked about 4 inside and I talked about patio.
So where are we getting?
Okay, so
Point of
you
order.
want to let him respond?
It's just.
They
it's
should not be debating each other.
Yeah.
No, it's just, I'm just getting different amounts of,
Okay.
potential clientele in a
Gotcha.
given seating.
All right.
In a given seating.
Mr. Hobbs, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I can address that. Like I stated earlier, the seating capacity is based on the site development plan that my architect did. Without any regard to, it's all based on square footage. So he said this can hold this many people per code. Now, when we look at the inside, it was supposed to be able to hold a lot more than 16 people inside. I think it was up to 24. But quite frankly, when you start setting tables up and look at the comfort zone of people sitting near each other, 16 is about what you can do. The patio is going to be a similar situation. You know, they've got 4 tables out there right now with 4 more chairs. They can probably squeeze a couple 2-top tables out there on the end. So, you know, when they say 50, that is busting at the seams again, and that's based on the numbers. With regard to this idea of speeding, like I said, am almost a constant figure in that parking lot, and I see the speeding going on up and down that road, and I see who does it. And I'm not going to call anybody out at this meeting because it would actually be kind of funny, but I see people speed up and down that road all the time. My parking lot is about 150 feet from Corrales Road. So unless you've got a brand new Corvette and you're punching it off of Corrales Road, you're not going to hit 35 miles an hour coming down and turning into my parking lot. I'm right there. I wish we could take a look at the site development plan and see exactly where my building sits. And in answer to Mr. Miura's concern about the right turn only, it's coming out of my parking lot and turning right onto East Meadowlark. And then you can either turn right to go to Rio Rancho or North Corrales, or turn left to go back to Albuquerque. There's no U-turn needed unless, you know, you're lost, I suppose. I live down the road. I don't want a ton of traffic either. As far as delivery vans, I wish that the restaurant owners were here because they're very good people. They won ethical awards and all sorts of awards. They're very, very good people. They're very conscientious people. They've tried to meet the neighbors. They've gone out and met them. And they're not about to turn this into a roadhouse or a bar or anything like that. It's 150 to 200 feet, best guess, off of Corrales Road into my lot. It passes two houses, one of which is so buried in shrubbery that it doesn't matter. The other one is Miss De La Torre's house. It doesn't pass anybody else's house going down the neighborhood. I built the fence specifically for the De La Torre residents so that the parking lot, cars parking in the parking lot, their headlights won't shine into their yard. I built a 100-foot long fence to do that, and I've surrounded and I've built up and I've done a lot of work there. And again, it's just right off of Corrales Road. When you stand into my parking lot and people are going by, you can hardly hear yourself think sometimes. The gas station is there, delivery trucks go in there a lot, they're banging around, all kinds of noise going on. So this idea of some bucolic scene on Meadowlark Lane, at least in the first 300, 400 feet, is just not the correct characterization in my estimation, in my opinion. That is my opinion only, and I know everybody has a right to their opinion, but I'm just trying to state it like it is. And again, I'm the first left turn off of Corrales Road on the East Meadowlark, the very first. Not way down the road where we're going to be going past everybody's house, and certainly not far enough down the road for speeders to take off and start speeding. Now, whether people park on the road or not is out of my control. I can put no parking signs out there, and I can call the police and have them towed. But I honestly, again, to say that they're going to be doing that or speeding or trucks in and out or all this chaos and this craziness is speculation at this point. And I don't want that either because I live in the same neighborhood.
Thank you, Mr. Hobbs. Appreciate it. Councilor Woolman.
Mr. Hobbs, could you address the alcohol question, kind of the elephant in the room? It's mentioned in the planning and zoning, in your site development plan. What are your intentions in terms of alcohol? Beer and wine, full
That's
liquor
all they
license?
have. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
I think this is all a big mistake, to be honest with you. We met, I brought the restaurant owners in to meet the building inspector and Lori and just to try to set up what we needed prior to the site development plan. During that sit-down meeting in the building over here with them, they mentioned that they had a beer and wine license, and would that be permissible here? And they asked me, is there a church or a school within a certain number of feet? And I said, no, not to my knowledge. And Lori was very quick to point out that there would need to be regulation and licensing stuff done way, way before this. And it's not within the planning and zoning scope of practice, for lack of a better term, to determine that. So it was really a non-issue, but they put it on the little yellow placard out there in front, and I know that that raised a lot of eyebrows.
So, not to interrupt, but the potential is there. You don't have plans at this time to do that?
No, they just want to open up and do business. They've been sitting there for over 30 days. And
No, but in terms of alcohol?
no, there is no.
I don't think
you guys
this-
have to approve
There
that.
are restaurants that are dependent on alcohol sales. This will not be.
No, so, Councilor Woolman, it's not an issue.
Right.
It has to go before the state.
Right.
And then it has to come here. Councilor Alsobrook.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to correct the citation I used earlier to the village code. I was quoting 1837 J2A.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I can see that. Councilor Burkett.
I was just going to bring up the point that I thought the alcohol license was outside the context of this meeting.
Absolutely, because it's not approved by planning and zoning. It's approved by you guys after the state has said it's okay. Councilor Mira.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real quick, like on looking at the number of slots, 25 is the maximum number of cars you can put on the lot, and that's
24.
24. I just need to make sure I didn't hear that that's the most you can ever put.
Oh, no, I have plenty of space, and we went over this in the.
That's kind of what I thought I heard, that there was plenty of space, but I'm looking at the site plan. The only place I could see moving more towards the detention pond.
No, sir. In the back where the old drainage field was, the old
Okay.
leach field. That has been removed because I hooked up to the effluent water.
Okay, so when you have a question, we need to have Mr. Hobbs come up here to the microphone. If you're going to ask,
Actually, I was gonna ask that question of planning and zoning,
Okay.
if they had taken into consideration any use of that detention pond at any other time.
Lori, are you still, yeah, she's still there. Go ahead.
Well, when in a site development plan, the applicant's architect determines the amount of spaces required based on, square footage and from our code, and that's what he did. And he determined that the 24 spaces were needed, so that's what's shown. I don't expect the retention pond. Mr. Hobbs, I think, just answered this. He did in fact, excuse me, he did in fact bring this up in the meeting that should in the future, if he need to expand his parking, that would be an amended site development plan. It would be a new public hearing, even if it's just parking increases. And it could go in the back where the, he just said what it was. There was a leach field that's no longer there because he's hooked up to the wastewater system.
So the detention pond was brought up during your meeting?
Of course, it's one of the requirements that they have. Any commercial site development plan does have to show retention for the site. And that pond's been there a long time. I can remember even when Darling Tribes was there, that they had a picnic table in there, but it was a retention pond.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay? Oh, yes, ma'am. Will you please get up the microphone?
Yes, I had an ordinance answer for you. I don't know all the ordinances backward, forward, and inside out, but I know that there is an ordinance 1837C and 1837D that the business is not on the NCOD permissive or conditional use list because Mr. Hobbs appears to want this to be a mixed-use building, kind of a mini mall, with a restaurant and retail and yoga studio and hair salon and accountant office, and that's not on the list anywhere in any ordinance. 1837C and 1837D, and I just want to comment, the Latia wall does look nice. It's pretty, but it doesn't do anything to buffer noise. It's, what Latias are, the sticks, and you can see through it. So it's not going to cut light. It's not a solid wall, is what I wanted to say. I just wanted to clarify that. And if I could just speak to the commissioner who did the wink, did not deny it. In fact, she said, I've got one for you too. So I just wanted to mention that because we do appreciate all of you who serve. And I know you don't get paid and it's a thankless job, but the wink was not denied by the woman who did it.
Lori, did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, just a point of correction. The NCOD is a separate commercial area located off Don Julio Road and is not relevant to this appeal or this application.
Okay. Any other questions from the council? We ready to vote? So do you want to go into closed session or open session first for discussion? Are you ready to vote?
I'm ready to vote. Ready to vote.
You ready to vote? Okay. Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move we are in appeal. I move we approve the appeal.
You approve the appeal.
That's correct.
Second.
So we have a motion to approve the appeal. So you're doing away with the planning and zoning determination that it was okay.
That's correct.
And a second from Councilor Mier.
Say that again?
So you're voting for the appeal against planning and zoning, basically.
Yeah, and then you added something at the very end there, and I wasn't too sure what that meant.
Well, it's always confusing when you do this.
That's right, we're voting on a negative issue, so.
Yes.
So I wanted to make sure.
So you're supporting the appellants as opposed to planning and zoning?
That's correct.
Okay. How do you vote, Councilor Burkett?
No.
Councilor Alsobrook?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
No.
Councilor Woolman?
No.
And Councilor Mira?
Yes.
There you go.
So, therefore, planning and zoning decision stands. Okay. So let me direct the counselor.
Just one,
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead, Counselor.
Mayor, we do need a vote in the positive. We need a second motion.
That's why I asked that question.
Yeah.
I make a motion, we deny the appeal.
Second.
And a second. How do you vote, Councilor Mira? To deny the appeal. Now it's a positive.
Yes, that's the positive vote, yes.
Councilor Woolman.
No.
Wait.
Wait a minute.
You guys both just reversed your stances.
We got to reverse. So we're denying the appeal. And you're voting to deny.
That would grant
the application.
I'm voting to grant the application for the appeal.
No, not for the.
No. You're,
That's a no.
you're voting for the planning and zoning decision to allow the site development.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
John?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
So we have a 3-2 vote, so the planning and zoning decision is affirmed, and Mr. Hobbs can move forward. I think we have completed the business of this appeal. This part of the meeting is adjourned. We'll take a 10-minute break and then start up with a regular meeting.